INFJs are known for being compassionate, intuitive, and emotionally deep. They often put others first and care deeply about the feelings and needs of the people around them. While these traits make them amazing friends and partners, they can also make INFJs vulnerable to emotional abuse. When someone takes advantage of their kindness or manipulates their emotions, the impact can be long-lasting and painful. Emotional abuse doesn't leave visible scars. It happens quietly, through words, actions, or even silence. For an INFJ, who already feels things deeply, this kind of abuse is hard to ignore. They don't just hear what's said, they feel the meaning behind it. When someone uses guilt, blame, or manipulation, the INFJ absorbs it all, and instead of fighting back right away, they often turn inward and try to fix the problem themselves. Because INFJs want peace and harmony, they may stay in a toxic relationship much longer than they should. They try to understand the abuser, excuse the behavior, or believe things will get better. Over time, this slowly breaks down their confidence and trust in themselves. Even after the abuse ends, INFJs may struggle with the effects. They might question their feelings, doubt their decisions, or feel lost about who they really are. Healing is possible, but it starts with understanding what emotional abuse really does to them. In this video, we'll explore 6 powerful signs that show how emotional abuse affects the INFJ. These aren't just symptoms, they're inner battles that many INFJs face in silence. Sign number 1, they internalize blame and guilt. One of the first things emotional abuse does to an INFJ is make them feel like everything is their fault. INFJs already tend to blame themselves when something goes wrong. They're always trying to make peace, understand others, and fix problems. When they're in an emotionally abusive relationship, this natural tendency is used against them. The abuser might twist facts, deny things they said, or blame the INFJ for their own bad behavior. Over time, the INFJ begins to believe these lies. They may think, maybe I did something wrong, or if I were better, they wouldn't treat me this way. Even when they feel hurt, they often end up apologizing. This kind of self-blame slowly eats away at their confidence. The INFJ may stop standing up for themselves. They second-guess their feelings and decisions. If they try to talk about their pain, they might get shut down, told they're too sensitive, or made to feel like they're overreacting. Instead of getting support, they're made to feel guilty. This guilt becomes a constant weight they carry, even after the relationship ends. They might replay conversations in their mind, trying to figure out what they could have done differently. They question their role in the abuse and wonder if they somehow caused it. INFJs are naturally empathetic, so they try to see things from the other person's point of view. But in a toxic dynamic, this empathy turns into self-sacrifice. They make excuses for the abuser, thinking they're hurting too, or they didn't mean it that way. This makes it harder to leave or set healthy boundaries. What hurts the most is that the INFJ's good heart gets used against them. The more they care, the more they're blamed. And because they want to keep the peace, they stay quiet, take the blame, and try harder. When the truth is, they're not the problem. Over time, this leads to emotional burnout. The INFJ feels like they can never do enough, never be enough, and never get it right. And even if they leave the situation, that feeling of guilt can stay with them. It affects how they see themselves, how they relate to others, and how they handle future conflict. The first step toward healing is realizing the guilt doesn't belong to them. The blame was placed there by someone who wanted control. Once the INFJ sees that clearly, they can begin to separate the lies from the truth and rebuild their sense of worth. Sign number 2, they become emotionally numb. INFJs feel emotions deeply. Joy, sadness, love, pain, they experience all of it with full intensity. But when they go through emotional abuse, something shifts. The pain becomes too much, too often. And instead of breaking down every time, the INFJ starts to shut down. They go numb, not because they don't feel, but because feeling hurts too much. At first, this might look like silence. The INFJ becomes quiet in conversations. They don't argue back, even when something hurts. They stop sharing their thoughts or dreams. Inside, they're still feeling everything, but they're protecting themselves by keeping it all locked away. This numbness spreads over time. Things that used to bring joy now feel dull. The INFJ might stop doing the things they love. They might lose interest in people they once cared about. Even when something good happens, it's hard for them to feel excited. Their heart is tired. This emotional shutdown is a coping tool. When someone keeps being hurt, over and over, they learn to stop reacting. The INFJ becomes emotionally flat because it's safer than being crushed again. But this safety comes at a cost. They begin to feel disconnected from their own life. Friends and family might notice a change. They may ask, "Are you okay?" Or, "Why don't you seem like yourself?" But the INFJ may not know how to answer. They feel empty, and they don't want to explain why. This emotional numbness also makes it hard to make decisions. INFJs usually rely on their feelings to guide them. But when their emotions are frozen, everything feels confusing. They don't know what they want, what to believe, or how to move forward. This can lead to even more frustration and guilt. Sometimes the INFJ even blames themselves for going numb. They think, "Why can't I feel any more?" Or, "What's wrong with me?" But the truth is, this is a normal response to deep emotional pain. It's the mind's way of protecting the heart. The challenge is that numbness doesn't go away on its own. The INFJ has to feel safe again before their emotions can return. They need time, support, and space to heal. Only then can the layers of numbness start to melt away, and their full self begin to come back. Sign number 3. They lose trust in their intuition. NFJs usually have strong intuition. It's one of the things that defines them. They can sense when something is off, even before anyone says a word. They often understand people's emotions without needing an explanation. This gift helps them navigate life and relationships. But when they go through emotional abuse, that gift can start to feel like a curse. One of the hardest parts of emotional abuse is the confusion it creates. The INFJ might feel that something isn't right, but when they speak up, the abuser denies it. The INFJ hears things like, "You're imagining things," or "You're too sensitive." Over time, the INFJ starts to believe that their intuition can't be trusted. They might have felt something wrong in a conversation, but instead of standing by that feeling, they doubt themselves. They question their memory. They wonder if they misunderstood. And little by little, their natural confidence in their inner voice disappears. This loss of trust is painful because INFJs rely so much on their intuition. It helps them feel safe and guided. It's how they connect with the world. Without it, they feel lost, unsure and disconnected from themselves. Even outside the relationship, this doubt can follow them. They might struggle with small decisions. They may second-guess how they read people. They wonder if their feelings are too much or not valid. And that internal questioning becomes exhausting. What's worse is that the INFJ often doesn't tell anyone about this. On the outside, they seem calm, but inside, they're stuck in a constant loop of doubt. They try to sort things out alone, but without trust in their own thoughts, it becomes harder and harder to find peace. This is exactly what emotional abusers want. They want control. And if the INFJ stops trusting themselves, they're easier to manipulate. The abuser may even say they know the INFJ better than the INFJ knows themselves. And after enough time, that lie can start to feel true. But it isn't. The INFJ's intuition never really leaves. It gets buried under pain, confusion, and fear. It's still there, quietly waiting to be heard again. And with time, space, and healing, INFJs can rebuild that trust. They can learn to listen to that voice again. And once they do, they start to come back to life. Sign number 4. They isolate themselves. When INFJs are hurt emotionally, one of the first things they do is pull away. They don't usually yell or argue. Instead, they go quiet. They step back from the world. And that's exactly what emotional abuse can trigger. A deep, painful kind of isolation. It often starts slowly. Maybe they stop texting friends back. Maybe they cancel plans. Maybe they spend more time alone in their room. Not because they want to recharge, but because they feel too broken to be around anyone. INFJs already need a lot of time to themselves, so at first, this isolation might look normal. But there's a difference between healthy alone time and isolation caused by emotional damage. In this case, the INFJ isn't choosing solitude. They feel pushed into it by shame, confusion, or fear of being judged. They might think, "No one will understand what I'm going through." Or worse, "I don't want to burden anyone." So they stay quiet. They carry everything alone. And even if they're surrounded by people, they still feel alone inside. The emotional abuser might even encourage this isolation. They may tell the INFJ that their friends aren't really there for them. They might twist things to make the INFJ feel unsafe opening up to others. And in many cases, the INFJ starts to believe it. This withdrawal can lead to loneliness and sadness. The INFJ wants connection, but they don't know how to ask for it anymore. They have lost the feeling of safety in being vulnerable. And without support, the pain just grows deeper. What hurts the most is that INFJs are usually the ones others turn to for support. But when they need someone, they don't always know who to go to, or if anyone will truly listen. They might test the waters with small comments, and if people miss the signs, they retreat further. This isolation doesn't mean the INFJ has given up. It means they're trying to protect themselves. They're trying to heal without making noise. But healing in silence can be a slow and lonely process. The truth is, INFJs need connection just like anyone else. And when they finally reach out, it's a brave step. Being heard, being seen, and being reminded that they matter, that's when the walls start to come down. Sign number 5. They develop people-pleasing tendencies. INFJs are naturally caring. They want to help others, solve problems, and create harmony. But when they've been emotionally abused, this caring can turn into something harmful. People-pleasing. Instead of helping from a place of love, they start acting out of fear. In emotionally abusive situations, the INFJ often learns that love is conditional. They're praised when they agree. They're criticized when they speak up. Over time, they figure out that the easiest way to keep the peace is to stay quiet, say yes, and avoid conflict at all costs. So they begin to say what others want to hear. They smile when they feel sad. They agree even when they disagree. They put everyone else's needs ahead of their own. And even when it hurts, they keep doing it, because it feels safer than being rejected or yelled at. This people-pleasing doesn't come from weakness. It comes from pain. The INFJ is trying to avoid more harm. They think, if I just make them happy, they won't hurt me. But in the process, they lose touch with their own voice. Even after the abusive relationship ends, this habit can continue. In new situations, INFJs may struggle to say no. They might take on too much, try to be everything for everyone, and feel crushed under the weight of always being nice. Inside, they may feel angry or resentful, but they push those feelings down. They think, I shouldn't complain, or at least I'm keeping the peace. But that peace comes with a cost. Their needs go unmet, their energy gets drained, and their sense of self fades. People may praise them for being helpful or kind, but they don't see the exhaustion behind the smile. They don't realize the INFJ is afraid of saying no, not because they can't handle conflict, but because they've been trained to avoid it. The path to healing begins with small steps. Saying no, setting limits, speaking up. At first it feels scary, but with time, the INFJ learns that real love doesn't require shrinking themselves. They begin to value their own voice again. And slowly, the need to please everyone starts to fade. Sign number 6. They experience identity confusion. INFJ usually have a strong sense of identity. They know what they believe in, what matters to them, and how they want to live. They spend a lot of time reflecting on who they are and how they can grow. But when emotional abuse enters their life, this clear identity can start to fade. Slowly, the INFJ begins to feel lost. Emotional abuse often involves manipulation, gaslighting, and constant criticism. The INFJ may hear things like, "You're too sensitive," or "You don't know what you're talking about." Over time, these messages wear down their confidence. They begin to question everything: how they feel, what they believe, and even who they are. The abuser might twist facts, rewrite history, or act like the INFJ's memories aren't real. This confuses the INFJ, who naturally tries to understand and make sense of things. When their reality is constantly denied, they begin to doubt themselves on a deep level. They may start changing parts of themselves just to survive. They act differently to avoid conflict. They hide their true thoughts. They let go of hobbies, values, or interests because the abuser mocked or rejected them. Piece by piece, their identity gets chipped away. After a while, the INFJ doesn't recognize themselves. They feel like a stranger in their own skin. They ask questions like, "Who am I really?" or "What do I actually want?" Even simple decisions feel overwhelming. They've spent so much time trying to please someone else that they've forgotten what makes them feel alive. This identity confusion is more than just feeling lost. It's a deep emotional wound. The INFJ feels like their inner compass has been broken. They don't trust their thoughts or feelings. And that disconnection from self can lead to anxiety, depression, and a deep sense of emptiness. Even after leaving the abusive situation, the damage can linger. The INFJ may struggle to express themselves, try new things, or speak their truth. They're afraid of being wrong, being judged, or being hurt again. They carry a fear that their true self isn't good enough. But healing is possible. It begins when the INFJ starts to rebuild their identity, one truth at a time. They reconnect with things they once loved. They explore new interests. They journal, reflect, and rediscover what matters most to them. And with every small step, their real self begins to return. What once felt confusing slowly becomes clear. They remember who they are, not who they were forced to be. And that clarity becomes the foundation for strength, freedom, and self-love. Emotional abuse can deeply affect anyone, but for INFJs, the damage often goes unseen. They carry it quietly, they try to process it alone, and they keep showing up for others, even when they're falling apart inside. But what they need most is not to be stronger, it's to be understood. The effects of emotional abuse don't go away overnight. They take time to heal. For the INFJ, healing starts by recognizing what happened. It means admitting that the pain was real and that it wasn't their fault. It means letting go of guilt, rebuilding trust in their intuition, and reconnecting with the person they were before the abuse began. Support is a key part of this journey. Whether it's therapy, close friends, support groups, or time in nature, INFJs need safe spaces where they can be honest, vulnerable, and fully themselves. They need reminders that their voice matters, their feelings are valid, and their needs deserve to be met. Most of all, they need time to heal in their own way. There's no rush, no pressure to be fixed, just space to rediscover their truth, regain their strength, and return to the deep, caring, and powerful person they've always been. Emotional abuse may have left scars, but it doesn't get the final word. The INFJ is still here, still thoughtful, still loving, and still full of quiet strength. And with time, they can rise again, not just as survivors, but as whole, empowered individuals who know their worth.